Oops, here we go.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
I can. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, we managed to get the camera up, but we were having some issues with the audio, but I think we're gonna actually have better audio this time around than last time, thankfully.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we can go ahead and get started. So I think we'll call the meeting to order at 7:07, Dawn. Okay, we'll start with the roll call. This is Rolando Del Torre. I'm the acting president, or the president right now. And to my left, I have Jerry, our plant manager. Next to Jerry is Dan, one of the board members.
Should you mute all?
Oh.
And then it'll just be on you.
Good.
Except for.
Okay, so we have Dan next to Jerry up in the far corner. Jerry, if you want to wave. I mean, Dan, sorry. And then Lynn is sitting in the chair right in the middle. And Kathy is off to the side. We can see her legs. Okay, so first thing on the agenda is we need a motion to approve the agenda for this evening. Has everybody had a chance to review it?
There was a question earlier about an action item that needed to be taken with Jerry reporting. Do we want to move that one out, or is it okay the way it is? I'm looking at item FC and FD because they relate to the tank project.
Oh, I don't think that Jerry needs to be here for those, so he's welcome to leave this. So we can wait till the action item. I mean,
Okay.
he'll explain his need and then we can discuss at the action time of action. Okay.
All right. Then I move that we adopt the agenda as written.
For the minutes?
Well, we're changing things around a little bit this time.
No,
We're approving the agenda.
no,
So-
yeah.
Okay.
This is the same one that you sent out over, yeah. I looked it over for her.
you want to second it? Well,
Or you can,
okay. So Dan seconds.
okay. And then all in favor?
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks, everybody. Next on the agenda, we're going to do introductions. I think everybody knows everybody on the board. I'm wondering if there's anybody in the Zoom that hasn't been on the call before that would be interested in introducing themselves.
You need to give them permission on you.
I think I love them. Oh. Sorry, I think we had muted folks. I don't know if anybody heard me this last time, but I asked if there's anybody in the Zoom meeting that would like to introduce themselves that's maybe new to the meeting.
You unmuted me. I'm on the phone instead of my computer. Joanne,
Oh, hey,
so I'm up on my computer, but for voice, I'm on my phone down there in the corner.
great. You sound a lot better this time around.
We're giving it a try. So you can mute me.
Okay,
This is Kathy Wallace. I have been on I have attended the meeting before via Zoom, but I'm back.
yes, well, it's good to have you, and I did recognize your name, so thank you very much. Okay, well, if nobody else wants to introduce himself, we can move on to the next item. So we want to acknowledge additional correspondence that we received this month. So Diane had forwarded some amendments to the last email that she had sent. We received that on 4/28. I think it's included in the packet documentation that Don sent out, so you should see it there. I think we're going to cover a lot of the items.
Right there on the table. Did it get bumped?
Or get bumped.
Oh, the remote
Oh,
source.
it's probably HDMI two.
Oh, I turned it off.
I mean, one.
Sorry, we're,
You just turned it up. Did you want it all?
no, turn the TV on and with the, and then set it to HDMI or AirPlay actually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got HDMI two, is it HDMI one?
It's AirPlay.
Yeah.
You know,
Source.
Says-
yeah, where's the source? I'm not sure where the source is.
Yeah, the numbers.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know if anybody wants to play with it well. Okay, sorry about that. Interruption.
Any kids in the
So again, acknowledging the letter from Diane dated April 28th. A number of the items I think we're going to cover on the board. There was a couple items I think we're going to seek some more advice and get some more information on before we brought it to the board. And then we'll move on to our,
Okay, Kathy.
No, it's not that one.
okay,
You go down to,
It's this one.
there you go,
Now which way?
TV.
Connection.
okay.
Okay, yeah, Kathy knows what she's doing.
So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we're changing out the meeting flow a little bit. The next section of the agenda, we're going to have the reports from the different groups. So this is typically where Jerry will give us our plant maintenance report in the storage tank project. But before we do that, I wanted to give everybody a summary of kind of the events of the last meeting. That was the closed session meeting on April 21st. So just to recap, on March 31st, we had a meeting where the board authorized Jerry to move forward with the project. So we got the project started. On April 14th, we had our following board meeting, and during the board meeting, there was a motion to determine the feasibility of rebidding the project with guidance from USDA and legal. We did hear back from USDA. They didn't have any issues with it. But on April 21st, we had a meeting with legal counsel. That was the closed session part of the meeting. We met with legal, and the board determined that it was not feasible to rebid without incurring significant costs and time delays to the project. So no action was taken on the April 21st meeting with regards to changes to the project. So the project will move forward. Yep. Any comments from the public on that? Tiffany, I think you want.
Yes, there's some people in the waiting room that you have to let into to the meeting.
I appreciate that. How do I get to the meeting, to the waiting room? Admit, Jeanette Leonard.
Oh yeah, that's her mom.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Tiffany.
Hi.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to the water report, Jerry, then you want to give us the plant report?
All right, so I think with everybody home in the hot weather, we've had really interesting flow. And so the plant's working well, but we've had, almost a summer type flow this last hot week that we just had, but the plant handled it all well. The water is pretty dirty, and it doesn't treat just like normal, but I think we'll get through that as the snow melts through. Oh, so, okay. And then we odd situation up on Thomas. We had 2 service leaks. They weren't adjacent services. One was up the road, and one was down. So we got those repaired, and then we replaced the hydrant. We had got parts to fix it, and we were tearing it down. We think that the internals are stripped out. It wouldn't work. So we talked to Don, and rather than replace it, we'll stock the parts for the next one that maybe will come apart. It wouldn't come apart for us.
And fire season coming right on our heels with the drought. So.
Yeah, so we've got a brand new hydrant in there at Ginger and Thomas, and then up there on Wanda, there was a blow off, so it's a dead end line, and there was a leaking valve at the end. So we ended up replacing that on Friday. It went pretty good. I talked to Lynn. The road was a little beat up down there at the end, and we patched it and did a little overlay down in there. So
I have a thing on here that says source.
I think that turned out okay. Witt Road, I haven't been on Witt. Paul went down and said it's dry. Have you guys, after CCC did their work? So we'll just kind of keep an eye. Now I'm questioning whether we even have a leak at all. I think it might have been all CCC's water coming out of that little tank. So we'll just kind of keep an eye on it. That was a spot that we've had problems before, but Paul reported it was all dried up.
And they completed the repair?
Yes,
They did. Okay, because for a while there, I wasn't sure, but then it has been dry since for over a week now, because I've talked with Dr. Well.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
That's why I like
No, I just went back to this mirror.
We have a weird situation on Helen. We've had a number of calls. We've been watching it. There's a wet spot in the middle of Helen, just up from Virginia, about 5 or 6 houses. It's right in the middle of the road, this leak.
Yeah, it's weird because we walk there every day and it's just,
It's just a big wet spot in the middle. Our main is on the far side of the road there, and we don't have any services. We've checked it for chlorine several times. The county's got a sewer line in there, and they've got a service right in that vicinity. So we've reached out to them now, and because of the situation with, they're not really manning their offices, we had to do it electronically. We'll follow up again this week. They never called us back or anything. We talked to the people that called it in, and we talked to a couple other neighbors that are out there and explained, we don't think it's us. Usually there's no chlorine in it, right? And it's just a little wet spot. It's not running. But if it is us, it's going to be hard to find because we don't have a main or a service there, right? We're way to the side of when it leaks there, it comes into the ditch. So we'll kind of keep an eye on it and see, hopefully the county will meet us out there.
There's a resident there at the corner of Allen, who, they run, dishwater into their pond and it overflows and it goes in the culvert and that's why you see all the reeds and everything growing there, both on across
outside,
Virginia,
Yeah, that whole
yeah,
intersection.
and down Virginia,
Yeah.
Right.
on and it's all because of the dishwater. They're just letting it flow.
Huh.
They have a miner's inch and they just use
Let it go.
all inch of it.
Yeah. So
I thought they had a service leak and I went to their house, I thought they just didn't know. And they're like, oh no, that's
our
what we do.
Yeah. This is up a little bit from there. Hopefully the county will get back to us on it. I know the residents out there it's been going on for about 2-3 months. I mean, we saw it way back, tested it. There's no chlorine, kind of
Yeah.
looked at it, thought maybe it's just seepage from rain and whatnot. It was still, and it's there, rain or shine. And,
Well, the other thing is that where that pond is there on the corner, does that get fed by NID water? Yeah, so,
It's non-chlorinated water.
yeah, well, I know, that's why I'm saying though, so there may be something to do with NID's service to the pond.
That's coming out of the pond. Coming out of the pond.
yeah. It's, well, the likely culprit, because I think we're a little higher than the pond.
Yeah,
At
well,
that
you
point.
on ponds down here in the higher,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I
So
think,
it's going towards
I think it's
Saddleback from there.
sewage. It's more towards, Lauren, or, yeah, Florida.
Oh, okay.
So it's between there and almost right in between.
If you're sitting on the intersection of Virginia and Howard, you walk about 150 feet up. Yeah.
It's right in.
Where's that stop sign?
That's
Oh,
right.
okay.
So we'll keep an eye on it. I mean, like I said, I don't think it's us, but if the county would get back, we'll go up there and meet with them and see. It might be one of those where they deny it and there's no chlorine. So anyway, we've got everything together. June 12th is the tentative time that they're going to come out and do the service on the generator. We checked the references, all flying colors. They do some big contracts, man, big contracts. And so June 12th, they'll come out. We may have to push that. That's as soon as they can come out, depending on what's going on the site, if there's room for them to get in. Rolando asked if we could check for some blue fire hydrant reflectors. So when we do the annual fire hydrant inspection, we've never looked at blue hydrant. I think about half of them. So there's probably 30 of them. There's some of them do, some of them don't have them. So we're guessing about 30. So they're about $5 a piece. So it'd be about $150 to $200 somewhere in there, depending on the amount that we buy for them. And I figured, about half a day. So it'd be $400 to $500, I think, to go through and just drive the district. And they're self-adhesive, the ones that we're looking at. You place them, then run over them with a car. If whoever was doing the signs wants to do them, I mean, we can show you where to buy them and they can do them. It doesn't matter. But I think it's a good idea.
Interstate sales.
This was online. We were going to go to Interstates, but we just looked it up, and it's about $4.50 plus tax per unit. So we can go either way on that.
It might not be a bad idea to have half a dozen on hand.
Yeah, I think we probably need 25 or 30 just
to have them.
just because I don't think they're all marked. A lot of them are, and many aren't. So, okay. On the filters, the filters, if you imagine a gigantic propane tank, they have 4 access hatches along the top and 4 on the bottom. A couple of them are leaking on the bottoms, and they've been, and we've tried to tighten them, and it actually makes them worse. The only way to fix that, we did it a year before last on one of them, it started to leak, is you have to take the media out, right, to get down to it, and then you pull the hatch, and then you put a new gasket in. I'm thinking it's not hurting anything, it's just a little drip, coming out. For next week's budget meeting, I'm getting a quote for new media. And it might not be a bad idea to replace the media in at least one of them. And I'll just have a budget, I'll have a number for us. Then as long as we're going to do it, tear it down, why not just put all fresh media in, especially filter number 1, which is the oldest one that we have.
What's the time difference between the filters? When did they get?
I'd have to look,
Okay.
but I'd say 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And is it the first tank, the one having the issue or not?
Both of them.
Both are
Yeah,
having
both of
the
them are
issue?
having
Okay,
little leaks. Yeah.
okay.
So anyway, I'll have a number. We can make a decision what we want to do, next winter. So we serviced all the filter pumps, or changed the oil, all grease, and I had a mechanic come up and look, just, hey, what do you, because the seal, and if you tighten the seals too much, you risk damaging it and stuff. And he looked at it and said, hey, just let it do its thing. He felt the motor on the 20 horse, it's a super common motor. He said he can have it doing it all day. So, I couple avenues trying to find a spare pump that we could just have in this around. None of them panned out. The best I've got is Pack Machine, and they're very expensive. I'll get a quote from them just to find out what it would have. But Mark, they're a pump mechanic. That's what he said. Hey, if the problem is with the motor, he said they can get a motor in a day or two, right? So I'm thinking, and he listened to him, grabbed the shafts, looked at it. Yeah, we'll make it through the summer is his feeling.
Okay.
But, you never know, right? So we'll have the new filter pumps will be in, come this time next year. So, right, we just want to get this summer, out of it.
Okay.
Okay.
So if I understand correctly, you're saying that there's a potential, we're planning on getting through the summer and being on new pumps. If anything happens with the engine, we have no problems getting that resolved. If it's outside of the issue, the engine.
Yeah, it's the pump, it's the lower half. Then we got a bigger problem.
That's a bigger problem. Okay.
Yeah. But he listened to it and shook it. Like I said, he's seen more pumps than I'm ever gonna.
He didn't say this is gonna blow,
Right.
so that.
Well, then, do you have the 40 horse too, don't you?
Yeah, and we had talked a number of meetings back where the risk with that is, and as soon as we get into good, stable, hot weather, we're just gonna run the 40 all summer, preserve the 20. The problem is the generator won't start before. The one we have at the plant, it's too big of a startup load on it. And
Hopefully the power doesn't go out.
but if it does, we just want to be prepared.
Be
So
prepared,
the idea
yeah.
is we'll keep the 20 as kind of our reserve. Right now the 40 is a little too big, right? It catches up too fast in a plant like this cycle. So
What would be the plan how would you start the 40 if we had to? There's no-
we wouldn't be able to.
Okay.
That's, we'd have to run off the 5,
Okay.
which is less than half the capacity of that. No capital improvements to report for this month. In terms of the tank project, so right now things are happening. I met with the civil superintendent. Lynn actually met him on the way up, an older gentleman. We went up, he kind of looked at the site. We talked about staging areas and things like that. He was just trying to get a lay of the land. We went up to the plant, looked at the filter pumps, talked about staging of that. They are a sub to the tank manufacturer, right? So they really work for Pacific or Paso Robles Tank. Paso Robles Tank is assigned a project manager. They're sending submittals to us right now. So submittals are, these are the valves that we're going to put in. These are the tank calculations, So those all come through us. We look at them if it's electrical engineer or landscape or whatever. So the contract isn't signed yet from them, so they need to get it back. I'm expecting to have a scanned copy of their contract, their bonds, and their insurance certs tomorrow. You were on the copied on that. So Josh, the attorney, is ready to look at that. He'll review it for completeness and make sure that it matches. It's got the proper coverages, it's got everything in order, and then he has to certify it. So he'll certify it. Then it has to go to USDA. It's the last step. USDA then looks everything over and gives it the final approval. The only change that they requested on the agreement was there's a clause in there that all the subsurface investigations are complete and that they don't need to rely on any more information. And they appropriately took exception to that because we do have geotechnical plan for the bottom of the reservoir too. So we talked to the attorney, we talked to USDA, and they recommended rather than change the agreement, that we would just do it on a no cost, no time change order that would get executed immediately after the agreement. So there's no material effect. The attorney said because there's protests on it, just keep it clean, and that's absolutely the cleanest way you can do it.
Okay, so basically it just didn't account for the second tank,
Yeah.
And so we're doing that just as a.
Yeah, and that's been planned all the way
Gotcha.
along, and in
Okay.
fact, it's in the contract
Gotcha.
documents.
Okay.
Yeah, and they just wanted to clarify that, and
Right.
that was good. We did the preliminary bird survey. We're good on that. It's a little early. We're a week early. If they really are going to get out, mobilized on June 1st, right, it's got to be within 2 weeks of start of physical construction. But I wanted the biologist to go out and do a survey of the site before, so we didn't get a bad surprise, right? So he's looked it over, said, hey, he'll get us a letter this week, and then they will come out one last time, and so that we're within the 2 weeks, the 2 week period. Okay. So one thing that Pastor Robles Tank has asked is if it would be okay if they have a representative stay on site in like a travel type trailer or something like that. Whether it's like a trailer or RV, I'm not sure. There's room up at the plant. Physically, it can be done. And I told him, I said, hey, look, I can't make that kind of decision. That's something I want to talk to the board about. There's kind of 2 reasons that they want to do that. One is their superintendent's an older gentleman, and he would prefer not to be around, a bunch of people at a hotel in Auburn, because they're coming up from the south, so they'll probably work all week, then fly home on the weekends. And then the other issue is security. They'll have big welders out there. They'll have their tools and stuff like that. So that's what they requested. We've done it before on other. In fact, I did it at the Weimar site when they were building our tank. Different company, but. So I thought I'd throw that out. There's no obligation to do it. There's no requirement.
What would be the noise? What would be the noise for the community that lives here for that?
Yeah, they would be able to get 120 volt power off of out of the pump station or the plant or something like that. So they wouldn't need a generator per se. So like a generator running at night. If it's just one person out there living, I don't think it's going to be any noisier than say the pump station or the pumps up at the plant. If we were going to do something like that, I think that we would just write them a letter saying, hey, it's okay. However, for any reason, if this doesn't work out for any reasons, we have the right within 1 week to ask you if they can.
And they would be using our electrical?
Yeah.
The only thing I would be concerned about is if any of the residents up there would object,
Yeah, that's my concern.
If it's the motorhome I saw when he came, it's like a 22 foot van type motorhome, self-enclosed, self-contained and everything. If we did that, do we need to have some sort of a no fault clause for them to be here?
Yeah, I think it would be prudent to have like, you guys are held harmless, and we'd ask Josh to write
Other than that, I don't see any issues at all. They're back out.
Yeah, so if he stepped out of his trailer and broke his ankle.
I would like to at least have a one-to-one with each of the residents and ask them to give us permission before we did that.
Okay.
Fine with me.
Okay, so we'll follow up on that information then.
Okay. All right. Then let's see, Representative State Site. Okay, then in terms of kind of moving forward, so we've got our scope, our initial scope of work was to, through USDA applications and whatnot, in contract drawings, and that was kind of the end of our scope. So we've met the end of our scope and budget and all that stuff. So there's the hydros for construction management, engineering, inspection. Then there's the electrical engineer that we kind of talked about them working directly for the district to save on the markup and all that, for the inspection for the electrical submittal review. And
so they're not going to be subcontracted out by the company?
By me, be directly with you, yeah. And then same with the geotechnical engineer, Crawford and Associates would work directly if that's acceptable to you. And I think at other previous meetings we talked, it helps me on cash flow, right? Then I don't have to pay them, I don't have to mark them up, and I'll manage them. Yeah, I'm doing all that, as far as scheduling and working.
And this is all part of the bid?
Yes, it's part of the project budget.
Okay.
Yep.
So I think later on in the meeting, we're going to have an action to basically authorize Dawn to address the contract and anything, and as long as it's within our original, and there's no change in it, then he's authorized to forward with any of that. So we're going to take care of that later in the meeting.
Perfect. And what I'll do then is, so we have an agreement with the district that your attorney looked at, and we kind of went back and forth on it. So what I'm going to do is, because that model worked, you know, for your attorney, I would start there, right, with the agreement. I can send it to Scott Brown and just say, hey, or give it to you, and you can send it. And then that way it's already gone through the review and all that kind of stuff, you know, to protect the district. But that's probably a good starting point, I think, for the actual agreement. So if that's
Are you talking about
for Control Point and
Okay.
the electrical engineer in Crawford.
shouldn't that go to Barkowitz?
Okay, you sent it to Barkowitz. Scott Brown did it the last time, you know,
Oh.
on the engineering agreement. But we'd send it to Josh.
Anyway, I thought that would be a better call.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So what I'll do is I'll copy you and Josh and also send it to Control Point and to Crawford. And then everyone kind of take a look at it, make sure everyone's comfortable. Okay. The other thing that I was hoping to get action item on would be, so once the project starts, you know, there'll be a lot of things happening and decisions that I don't necessarily want to make solo for the district. So waiting between all the meetings for decisions, obviously big ones, the whole board, but for day-to-day stuff and stuff like that, I thought it'd be very useful to have some form of an ad hoc committee that could be kind of part of a group that I could keep informed. I copied Dawn on important stuff that I could include all of whoever's on that ad hoc. So if there's like a small change order or if there's stuff, because what tends to happen on these projects, if you can't make decisions quickly, then the contractor starts to cry, hey, you guys are delaying me, right? And then we get into delay claims and I don't want to, you know, so the ad hoc I think would help alleviate some of that pressure.
And,
Maybe 2 board members and myself.
yeah, and we have that as an action item
Right.
down below, so we plan to address that as well.
Okay. And then lastly, so interestingly enough, the house that's been to the north of the plant site where we're doing all the work has been vacant for years, like a year and a half. And now somebody just moved in. So, and I saw him the other day and I talked to him, super nice. That's weird. So we, so I met him, I explained what's going on. He's super nice guy. They're from Meta Vista. And then our other neighbor, Jeff, right adjacent to the pump station. I introduced him to Jay, the contractor. I've been talking to him, talked about some trees. And then lastly, the neighbor that's adjacent to the reservoir, the one I got a tree agreement. And in fact, I sent that to you. Could you sign that and send that back?
Oh, sure.
To me?
Yeah.
And I'll just get that to the property management company. I've been talking to the property management company, so everybody's kind of aware. The last little piece of the puzzle, we talked about Lynn, maybe just talking to the residents on Westridge, because there's going to be some commotion. For the last couple of weeks, when people walk the road back there, there's a lot of it's a beautiful walk, right? So we've been just explaining to people, hey, good news, bad news. This is gonna get restricted, you know, during construction for your safety, but it's temporary in just over a year, you know, work, and everybody's been very receptive.
We probably should have a sign right there on the ramp going up to the reservoir.
Right, the contractor will put a fence up.
Yeah, Construction
Yes.
zone, no entrance.
So that's what's happening. So
Okay. So Lynn, do you want maybe a couple of us, you and I or something, to walk around with the neighborhood and kind of give that message as well as get a pulse on whether they're comfortable with having someone stay on a camper?
For an ad hoc committee.
Or no, just for a kind of, the ad hoc committee is later. I'm just wondering if you want to do that, and I can join you. I don't think we need a big motion or anything for that. So,
we can do that.
okay, so we'll talk. Maybe the two of us can do that. Okay. Anything else on the tank?
that's it.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the Zoom meeting community?
Nope, sounds great.
If you're muted, I won't hear you. I don't see any hands up. Okay.
This is Heidi. I just wanted to say that I don't think my iPad is identifying my name for some reason. I don't know why. It just says iPad or something. I'm not sure.
Okay. Oh, good.
Anyway, I was hoping people could mute themselves while they're not talking, you know, the outside participants, because that way we are watching you, and if they're making noise, then it goes to them.
Okay.
So it is more convenient for the listening that people mute themselves while they're not talking.
I can mute everybody and allow you to unmute yourself.
Okay, that's great.
I'm going to try that. Let's see how that works.
Great, thank you.
Sure. So everybody should be muted. So if you want to speak, you're going to have to unmute yourself. We'll see how that works. Okay, great. We've covered everything. Okay, I think we're done with water, and you're welcome to stay, Jerry, or I think you're welcome to go. We're going to address the action items later, so Don can let you know what the outcome of that. But,
All right, time.
okay.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay. Okay, so our next on the agenda is the roads. So I don't know if Lynn, if you have an update, or who's got the Ralph Court drain issue.
A couple of things. Maybe 6 months ago, I looked at a ditch issue over on Ralph Court and told the property owners we'd take care of that, the drainage issue. Water's coming down and onto their property instead of around the corner. So that'll be on the list on Ralph Court.
Well, it was sort of taken care of, but it's still has some drainage issue on it.
It's such a flat area there for a fairly long distance that we need to cut a little deeper to get the water to flow. Dawn got an email and I got a call from the lady on Helen in Virginia about a ditch problem. I went over and looked at it, just even though I knew it was county roads on both ways, as a courtesy to her to look at it and give her a recommendation. So I told her that as soon as I was done with the meeting, I'd call her back, and she's pretty much on her own. You know, but I will give her some guidance on maybe what she might ask the county to do to alleviate the problem. Okay, Jerry, they did a leak over on Wanda, and the damage, because the water under the pavement broke up the pavement pretty bad. And we just fixed that 2 years ago, I think, a big patch on Wanda. And I went over and looked at that, and I came back and I told Jerry, I said, you know, since the water was the cause of the problem, I recommend that you guys, when you get done fixing it, you're going to patch one area, just patch to the edge of the pavement and be done with it. That all essentially comes out of the same purse anyway, so just fix it. Not technically, it's not the same.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this.
Right.
We've got two different purses.
They're gonna have all the equipment there and everything. I said, just take care of it if you will, and they said they would.
Okay.
Because you don't have to come back and do it again.
Right. But, well, no, I mean, is there any concern? Because basically what you're just saying is going to get done out of the water budget, right? But
because it was a water issue that made it happen.
Okay.
That was Lynn's point.
Yeah. Is that okay with everybody, or any concerns about it needing to come out of the room?
Do we have any idea what the cost is?
Good question.
Yeah.
No. It
The
can't be
last,
that much.
what's that?
It's probably not that much. And we're not talking an extensive repair.
No,
No,
it won't be that big.
no, yeah, okay.
The tree trimmer guys have been working on Westridge all week, and we spent a lot of money with Croy doing trees that they would have probably done for us.
Right.
And so as I'm watching them out there, I'm thinking, maybe when they get close to done by fall, we ought to have pay Croy or whatever to do a quick walkthrough and see if there's anything we need to clean up before winter.
Yeah.
As far as trimming goes, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, we basically
That's
stopped.
what I
Yeah.
recommended like
Yeah.
before. Just
Right.
let PG&E do their damage and
Yeah.
we'll go up and
Yeah.
So
clean up.
other than that, I think we're pretty good. I didn't see any real huge issues, but if we find a patch area that needs work between now and when they do it, we'll just add it on. It won't be that anything big. So just let me know, whatever, if you see something along the way, let me know and we'll add it on. Don and I
The
will take
tree
care of it.
trimming crews have caused a lot of leaks lately
Yeah.
on homeowners' side of the meter.
Yeah, because they run over the pipes and break them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just trees falling,
Yeah.
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 on the, not as deep a pipe there ought to be.
And have they been responsible for fixing that, or
I don't know, it's on the
it's
homeowner.
on the homeowner? Okay.
What I will tell you, because if you're not there, they're gonna just do what they want.
Right.
And so when they showed up on my property, I think I had 4 trees taken out, I was there and made sure, because they wanted to drive right across my sand filter on my septic system. And I says, well, if you guys want to spend $30,000 replacing it, then go ahead. I said, otherwise, no,
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Now, the only other thing, the power lines over here on the corner, can't remember the guy's name offhand now,
Oh, Yeah.
that have the flags on them. He
right,
hasn't done anything, so I guess if he's not interested in his own interests,
Yeah.
it's not any responsibility of ours to do anything. Just
Yeah.
so you're aware of what's there.
Right.
did PG&E take out the whole tree, or is the tree still there?
Well, they trimmed the tree up,
They trimmed the tree up, so,
yeah, but the 2 wires are still hanging
Yeah.
right.
down with the streamers on them. Anyway, that's it.
Okay. Tiffany, I see that you have your hand up. I'm not sure if you can unmute now.
Can she hear you?
Okay, I'm here. I just wanted to ask Lynn if it's possible still to get, when you do your bids on the road, to get on Gale Lane on your bids. Is that possible?
Aileen?
Which part?
They couldn't
So
quite-
from Sunshine Meadow to
To Stanley?
Campbell. No, to Campbell.
Oh, to Camp.
Is that district?
Isn't that the privately owned part?
Yeah. So what I was we need to get bids to do the road, and I was hoping that if you guys were going to do bids this summer, then we might be able to get in on that, and then I'll get 2 other bids.
Do you understand what she was saying?
No,
She was saying that Tiffany, correct me if I'm wrong. She's saying that the Campbell Gale Road Committee would like to do a road project along with us. If we could do the same, they pay for theirs and we pay for ours, but lump it all in one project so that get a better price.
we could accept that for the access to the Gale Loop people. The only roads they really use of ours is Gale from where it leaves Allen down to where, is it William?
Oh, she's wanting their road committee
Oh.
to work with our road
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah,
to
but I'm
get-
saying for the roads that they would use that are ours, there's only 2 little pieces and
Well, she's not interested in any physical connection between our projects.
I think that'd be fine.
She just wants to lump them together to
Yeah.
get
Get a better
economies of
price,
scale.
bigger
with-
project,
Yeah.
better price.
Yeah, I think it would benefit them and benefit us potentially.
That'd really be good to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Tiffany, if you just want to follow up with Lynn outside of that, I think that's a good
Okay.
idea. And
So when we write the summer contract.
Okay, great.
Share it with you, and we'll have it so they delineate
Yeah.
between the 2, a price for each, I guess.
So when we send the contract out and we get them back and we pick a contractor, then I will get with them and tell them what time frame we're looking at, who it's gonna be, and see if we can work something out.
Okay, because on Gale Lane, we don't technically have a road well, we don't have a board and we don't collect money. So I have to kind of get in my rear end gear and kind of get some letters out to people. And we needed the 2 bids, one to bring it up to standard, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Don, and then one for just us to pay for. Well, both of them we'd pay for, but 2 bids. So one, because I think if we went up to standard, we had to widen it 4 feet.
Are you trying to get it deeded over to the county? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we have never made a decision on that, but I would like to get 2 bids to see what the difference is between us just doing it and then getting it up to standard.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we'll work out the details on that.
Okay. All right.
And
sounds good.
we might, just kind of get a quick feel from a couple of contractors, to do one and the other, and just to see if it's in the ballpark, and then go with what.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a comment here from Seaberg to everybody. It says, please ensure the entire road of Westridge Avenue is resurfaced. It always stopped at Morningside and should be continued on the road to the fire gate. Is Westridge on the plan for this year?
Let's go in that direction.
Yeah.
On this road right here.
Is this getting paved? It's not getting paved this year, I don't think, because we're going to be doing all the construction. So we're going to be waiting till after the construction to pave here. So noted, there's no plans to pave Westridge this year because of the work that's going to be going on. Once that's done, we'll be looking at paving this area.
But I think she's talking about the other side of West. This
Right.
is Westridge Circle, and I think they're referring to Westridge Avenue, which is the other side.
Yes.
Of Ponderex.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have anything to do with.
Oh, it's not part of here.
Construction.
Oh, okay. But are we going to be doing any paving in this area at that time?
Not that we know of right now.
Okay.
Okay. So
They'll
then
mostly be
that's the
patches.
answer to that.
Okay.
But point well taken. If we're going to do Westridge Avenue, we do Westridge Avenue, not just a piece.
Yep. Is this, imagine, this might be the same gal that we put the sign up? Isn't that where we were putting the sign? Because that's what Seaberg?
Yeah, down here.
Is that
She's
same
down
area?
near the end.
Okay. And I believe she brought that up during the meeting
Oh, okay.
before, that they need to make sure we pave the whole thing.
And then we had a request on Mary.
Oh, and that piece
Yeah.
from Mary. The little section where Mary stops and it becomes Thomas off to the left, and then it goes Mary on down toward McElroy down the gully. When I first got there, that was one car wide. And over the years, we've picked away at it to where we got a minimal passing 2 cars. But we want to open it up and do it right, make it the same as the rest of Mary. So that'll be the big part of the project. And one of the issues with that is we have a water line right down the edge of it. We're going to have to work with Jerry to make sure we have structural
It's deep enough.
issues resolved before we put traffic on it. That's a lady that
Yes.
that we talked to earlier,
Right.
lives at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, luckily, last year we widened the culvert out. We extended the culvert out wide enough for that to take care of for this year's.
Oh, drainage, right, yeah.
Grade it and pave.
Okay. Any other comments on roads or?
That's it.
Okay. I think we're done with roads. So moving on to your report, Don, General Manager report.
Okay. On obtaining a webmaster for Christian Valley, in discussing this with Rolando, we decided that the best route to take, because it seems like we've got kind of bids all over the map on it, is to get an assessment of our website from a non, where all they do is just assess the website on what needs to get repaired to make it ADA compliant. client, and then have a sort of a list of here's what needs to be done, and that becomes the scope of work.
Yeah.
And then have them bid on that.
Yeah, because right now what's happening is we're basically being told you need to do this and we'll do it for you. I think what was recommended to me through one of my colleagues is that there are organizations out there that actually will do either very free for nonprofits and do an audit of your site that will say, here's the problems we've identified. And then once we have that, then we can be more clear about what needs to be done when we're negotiating the effort.
Does the county have somebody that can do that for us?
I'm not sure if the county would. We can check, but there are organizations out there that do it.
Right, I just was thinking if we could keep it within the county, they might either know the organization that we should go to, or they might provide the service for us to do the audit.
Yeah. So we're kind of working on identifying who might be doing that.
Yeah.
And so, and then as far as the different committees, do you want to?
Sure. So we have started 5 committees, and I've had 3 applicants. So thank you very much for the applicants. Bonnie, Julia, and Diane. And the committees are the board bylaw revision, board compensation study, fire safety station communications, and the board review development committee. Those are the committees that were approved by the board on the 14th of April. And I have made a call to 2 people because Diane, yours just came in. And what I'd like to do is to sit down with all 3 of you and see if we can kind of separate out who's going to serve on what committee. They're going to be relatively, the board bylaw revision and the board compensation study will be relatively quick. And the policy review development would be an ongoing one, as well as the fire safety station and the communications one. But the intent is to have the community be a part of this committee as an advisory to make recommendations to the board, particularly in several of these areas on fire safety, on which actually goes right into the board bylaw revision component, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Then on as we develop policies, to have that community input before the board takes action to approve them based on our ordinances and based on our bylaws. So thank you for your responses. I was hoping to have a few more folks jump on board, but we can make do, and we'll continue to recruit. Again, the board bylaw committee and the board compensation committee are going to be starting immediately. And the policy review will be starting probably in about a month.
Okay.
So if you know of anybody who wants to be a part of that committee, let me know, because we just sit down and hammer it out and get it done and make our recommendations.
Link on the website.
There's a link on the website to it, yes.
The guy that came and spoke on the Firewise committee, didn't he express interest in assisting?
Yeah, he did in writing.
Oh, who is it?
It's a man that lives over on Barber Lane.
Okay, well, let's
Yeah.
recruit him if you have his, yeah, anybody that we can recruit to get these, because there'll be a different board member on each of the committees. So, except for Don, who, because of his position, will probably have to touch base with all of them. But we can have them running all at the same time, so we don't have to wait for one to be finished before the other one starts. And then again, the bylaw and the board compensation need to be running in tandem.
Are there any other items for you to report on?
Nope.
Okay. So if anybody has any comments on the committees or the webmaster, you're welcome to share them now.
And I need to get together with Kathleen to come up with a job description for the
Oh, that's right.
Trust me, it's on the agenda.
Yeah. It's,
Is that gonna be a committee?
No, that's on the policy review development, and actually, did you send out the policy review, the policy? I put together a list of policies for the policy committee that is policy review development job description, so it's actually a larger and put together a list. I don't think I have it under the action items. I was gonna talk about it under the bylaws, but we already have a list of upcoming tasks that need to be taken care of, policies that we need to take a look at. And one of them is setting the job descriptions for potential positions or current positions like yours. And then setting the salary, doing a salary study and setting the salaries for those. So that the board can adopt them so that we have them. And I sent, is that posted on the website, that document? Okay, I will work to get those posted so that other folks can take a look at and see what we're looking at in terms of the direction that we're going to be headed as far as the adoption of those. But I made a list of required policies for committees, and then I made a list of the job descriptions that I think we need to have based on just the communications that we've had so far. And so then we can work our way through those. The committee can then work their way through those.
Okay, again, any questions from the community on Zoom? You'll have to unmute yourself or raise your hand if. Okay, then I think we're done with the report section of our agenda. Moving on to F, the actions. Okay, so the first item on the actions is appointing a new board member. We have how many people? There are four candidates that are gonna be applying. Right now, I'm gonna give the community an opportunity to comment on the board positions if they feel they have to comment before the board takes action on this topic. Does anybody have any comments regarding the board positions? Okay, it doesn't look like we have any comments, so we'll go ahead and get started. Yeah.
So, discussing
I just had a suggestion that before we do the actual interview, that the board actually talk about what they're looking for in a board member. Then once we talk about what we're looking for in a board member to complete the 5, then we open it up to the candidates, let them share a little bit about themselves and address why they would be a good board member after having listened to what we're looking for. And then the board can make the decision about who they want to put in. So if that's an okay process, I think it gives the candidates a little more insight into what we're thinking, and it gives us some insight into what the candidates are offering. Is that okay?
Yeah. That's fine by me. I don't know if.
Fine by me.
Okay, making sure.
Go with
Okay.
the 4. I think we've talked to or about.
Well, but before we even go to who the candidates are, I think we'll take an opportunity to say what we're looking for in a candidate. So I don't know, do you want to start us off?
Sure, I would really like to have a candidate that has served on either nonprofit boards or other boards before, and if not, at least served in the capacity of a board member in an organization, so that they're used to working with a board in general and understand the concepts of how to be a board member. I would also really like to see someone that has a real strength in fiscal policies and management, but because I know we hire an outside consulting firm to do that, but it would be really helpful for me because that's not an expertise that I have. So I'm looking for somebody that has that.
Okay, Lynn?
we've been really lucky, in my opinion, over the years that we've gotten a pretty good mix of experience on board members. Some board members have more experience with boards and that sort of thing. A couple of the board members have had more formal training slash work experience that's been beneficial to the board. And I think the bottom line for any of the candidates is willing to put the residents of Christian Valley first and willing to do everything you can to make the board work as a board, that agree with each other, or if we don't agree, that we work it out so that we have a consolidated position. I think as a board member of a small board of 5, we need to work together. And as we work together and bring together different ideas, different experiences, different education and everything, I think we come up with pretty solid decisions that are pretty realistic. So that's, not everybody's going to be the same, but they all have to be willing to blend into the overall to make it work.
Okay. Dan?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Lynn, what he just said about my foremost thing is being able to work with the people that are already on the board to achieve the best outcome for Christian Valley and whatever the circumstances are, and to put your personal feelings aside and to work for the betterment of the community as a whole to achieve what we're trying to get done. I think someone with some fiscal background would be very helpful because, like you said, we do pay for that, and probably somebody with some technical background in setting up some
virtual conferences.
Hopefully the corona stuff will be over by then, but anything that we can do to improve our message to the community and to get our to outreach and seek additional help and input from the community, I'd like to see more.
Communications,
So,
yeah.
communications, that's exactly it. So that's my position. So.
Okay. For me personally, I think a couple of things. One of which is communication. I think that's a big one. I think that communication is a very tricky thing. There's folks that are very good at it, and folks that think they're good at it, and folks that just try, right? So if there was someone that had communication experience, that were also confident in the ability to influence, because I think that's also a skill set. Over the last year with the experience of the rate hearing, I think that it would have been beneficial to have someone who can quickly observe the direction of the room and have the ability to influence people's mind very dynamically. And the third thing that I would look forward to is some thick skin. I think being in any kind of a leadership role or a governance board like this, sometimes you have to be very comfortable communicating the unpopular message. Someone who has experience and wit about doing that, I think, would be very useful to the board. So I think mostly I'm seeing efforts around communication, along with everything that everybody mentioned. I think the other thing that's helpful is analytical skills, because I think there's a lot of information that we are going through recently, and it's very dynamic, and to be able to synthesize that would be useful. Okay, I think I'm going to open it up to the community members, those of you who are not applying for the board. If anybody wants to share what they would like to see in a board member, I'd welcome the comments now. You'll have to unmute yourself or raise your hand. Okay. I don't see any hands or anybody. Oh, wait, I have two. Is that two comments over there? What's the two? It says more. Well, I think that's on the iPad, so it's not us.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because I don't see any chats. Okay. Okay, so I think now we're gonna open it up to the applicants. So Don, you have the list of applicants. Do you wanna?
It's gonna start with Diane Alessi, then Kathy Wallace, then Bonnie, and then Heidi.
Okay, so,
Bonnie Gilmore and Heidi.
okay. So Diane, if you wanna unmute yourself, and I'm just gonna reiterate kind of what our plan was. Kathy suggested that the group kind of identify what we saw as needs for the community, and then maybe if you could address how your experience might fit those needs.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, finally. Okay, I'm having a technical difficulty. That's why I'm on my phone and the computer. I'm similar to poor Joanne.
Well, you actually sound very, very clear, so that's good.
Oh, okay, very good. Actually, Rolando, I think I fit most of your criteria. Have the analytical skills, actually have already proven myself in terms of being able to communicate with the community and have stepped out to do that. I don't believe anybody on the board, besides maybe Lynn, has knocked on as many doors and talked to the community. I bring a really strong analytical skill in terms of research, and I think the strongest suit is actually bringing the board in compliance, which over the past 7 months, I'm finding all kinds of holes, as you well know, because I've been noticing you to those deficits. I believe as long as nobody's sending direct insults at me, I'm very workable. I managed even telemarketing back in my past. I've been a banker. I know what the financial institutions, how they run, what the products are. I understand bonds and financial products probably better than most. And I just have an overall passion for this community because of my growing up here and being probably the longest term resident in terms of all the applicants and anybody who's ever sat on the board. So I know these people. I want to work with the board always, and the CVPRC was started in October for this because there just needs to be more compassion for the overall and not just turning Christian Valley into another millionaire row. These retirees who are losing their retirement savings through market crashes, ups and downs. I follow all of that information to a T. And that's where I believe the board probably lacks, is that the overall what's happening in the long term and looking at the prospectus all the way out with the International Monetary Fund's outlook and how they're going to shape the economy going forward. So we need to pay close attention to those forecasts. And I'd like to actually invite anybody to ask me questions.
Okay.
We'll just ask questions of everybody.
Also, we're gonna wait to hear everybody. Okay. So we might ask questions at the end, Diane, and okay, so thank you very much, Diane. And so next on the Kathy Wallace.
Hi.
Hello.
So I think I may be the newest member of the Christian Valley group. I've only been here for about 1.5 years. And as I said before, there's kind of good news and bad news about that. The bad news is that I don't know the history of everything. The good news is that I might be able to come in with some fresh ideas. In terms of my background, I did serve on a board for the American Association of University Women. The reason I stopped being on that board was because of moving up here. As a nurse, I have created a number of programs which required working with a number of different people to be able to get policies and procedures and approvals, required being able to meet with small and large groups to be able to get consensus on things and then move forward. One of the things that I think is the most important aspect of being a good nurse is clear communication and education, which I think I'm very skilled at. And I'm also good at being able to talk about difficult things. My last few years as a nurse, I worked in hospice and helped create a program in the hospital for people who were imminently dying. So not only was I helping to train some of the nurses in the hospital, who surprisingly a lot of nurses are not comfortable with death, to be able to help train them and support them, but also to be able to work with the patients and their families. So I think those are my biggest strengths. I think you have some incredibly qualified people who do have the fiscal background that I don't. I've certainly worked with budgets in my past. I've been a manager, but not to the degree that I think you're probably talking about. So that would be a learning curve for me. And I welcome any questions as well.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Okay, moving on. Who's next?
Bonnie Gilman.
Hello, Bonnie.
Hello,
You're up.
Rolando. Hi, how are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you again. I just wanted to say I hope all of you have had a chance to look at the letter that I submitted, which I think pretty succinctly goes over my experience and hopefully shows my strong, I don't want to say love, that's too strong a word, but my commitment to the community. As you know, I served for 20 years in local government as the investment and treasury analyst for the city of Santa Rosa. And during that time, I was very involved in writing public policy and procedures. When I left in 2003, I was managing a $200 million portfolio. It sounds like a lot of money, but I used to tell people in smaller cities that it was really just about the zeros. You know, it's the same skill set and the same care goes into managing a small budget as well as a very, very large budget. So I think that that's important. After we first retired, I spent 5 years as the executive director for United Way of San Juan County in Washington State. It was the first time that I had been really involved in nonprofit from a managerial standpoint. I learned a lot about how nonprofit works, how it's similar to local government or municipal government, and perhaps even more similar to special districts than a city or a county might be. I think I have really good communication skills, both written and verbal. And I think it's really important at this time in our board that we be aware of the fact, or continue to be aware of the fact, that each of us, people who write the newsletter like I do, or you as board members, we really are the face of the community. And every time we talk to someone, our neighbors, or the guy picking up the trash about Christian Valley, we need to keep that in mind. I think that I can work with all of you in a collaborative manner. And I also think it's really important, looking forward to November and beyond, that we have new people on the board who, if possible, have some institutional knowledge about the district. It would be something if come November we had all new board members except for Lynn. And Lynn, you're on the hot seat to train everybody. So I think that's going forward, that's going to be important too. Again, just like everyone else, I welcome any questions that you might have for me, and I would look forward to serving with all of you.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. And next is Heidi. Heidi, let's see, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
She's the iPad.
She actually is showing her. I can see her now, so I'm going to minimize this so I can see her.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Heidi.
So, yeah, I appreciate everything the board is doing. And my background, of course, as you know, is primarily technical and scientific. And I feel that I could contribute my many, many years of experience as an engineering geologist and hydrogeologist, dealing with issues such as slope stability and water quality, which of course is one of our most important issues in this community, is having safe water and excellent water quality. And I feel that it would behoove the board to have someone who could look at that side of things and oversee some of the issues, some of the work that is going on, as well as water quality reports and that sort of thing. As far as fiscal, I've had experience with budgets in my many years with state and federal government. I have, although that is not my strong suit, but I am very concerned that we provide not only safe water, but also economically feasible water, so that the costs for the residents stay reasonable. That's a big concern of mine. And I am very concerned about the community. And I believe open communication is just huge. I have talked to quite a number of members of the community myself. I believe I have excellent verbal and written skills. I have not served on a board per se, but I worked for the State Water Resources Control Board, so I know how boards work. I have been on many committees working with both members of the community and other governmental agencies and industry. So I have had to communicate often by writing and verbally in those situations. So let's see, is there anything else? I just believe the community and the board could benefit from my experience. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that was it for the candidates, right? Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
I wanted to ask Zoomland if there was any others that.
Oh, okay, that are interested? Yeah. What's the, trying to make sure that, okay. So I just want to confirm that there's no other candidates out in the community who were interested in applying or may have changed their mind now and that we missed. You'd have to unmute or raise your hand. Okay, so I think those are our 4 candidates. I'm not seeing any, or you can send a chat too. Okay. Okay, does anybody have any questions?
I have one question of Diane. Diane, when you were giving your quite extensive background, have you served on boards or had a leadership position on boards before?
No, not specifically on a board, but I have been to, for the past 7 months, I've never missed a board meeting in terms of Christian Valley, and I've gone into extensive research for all the projects. I am a contract reader, so I can read very technical documents very quickly and ascertain what needs to be changed or what works.
Okay, great.
That was always my strong suit, even in the banking, as far as the documents. They used to bring the documents to me for review.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I had a question for Bonnie.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay, Bonnie, have you,
Yes.
you sound like you had quite a bit of experience with working with public policy and stuff like that. Have you ever done anything as far as water projects or anything like that, or anything similar to that type
No.
of work?
Not water specifically. In my job at the city of Santa Rosa, we had both water and wastewater. Part of my job was to take bond proceeds from I think it was a $300 million wastewater project and invest those. So part of that was reading documents from bond counsel, making sure that we had the appropriate investment vehicles for those monies to go into. But my job for the city was to manage both the general fund and special funds, and not water specifically.
Okay.
I hope I answered your question.
That did. Thank you. I appreciate your input.
You bet.
Okay. I have a question for Heidi. So Heidi, can you unmute?
Yep,
Okay.
I'm unmuted.
Okay, so Heidi, I wanted, you like you said, you bring a lot of experience with regards to water, and so I'm curious, as a board member, or as a new board member, or what are things that you would be concerned about specifically with regards to water that you think that all board members should understand? And it doesn't have to be super detailed. I'm just thinking about, so you're an engineer, water engineer. I don't know if that's the appropriate term, but
Hydrogeologist, yeah.
Hydrogeologist, yeah. So what would be the things that you would be hoping to understand about the plant right away?
Oh, well, with the new construction going on, I think it would be very important to have someone who had some experience with water systems to be able to oversee and read the reports, the technical reports, be able to discuss with the engineers on site what they were doing, be able to review the plans. And then, of course, water quality issues, to be able to, if any issues came up, to be able to work with the state and be able to understand what we're looking at with water quality and what the parameters are. Those would be some of the issues that I could see where my experience would be really useful.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, so I think we can open the floor for a nomination.
We shut them off.
I don't think it would be, we can, yeah,
We can't,
Yeah.
for Brown Act.
Yeah.
This is an
right,
open session.
So it's basically making a nomination.
yeah. Our only opportunity is to make a nomination.
Well, Kathy and I talked, she was over here last Friday.
Yeah, we were working on bylaws.
And we both agree that I don't think we should push right to a nomination until we have time to talk about it and see what the rest of the board members feel about an individual candidate.
I think we need to talk about what we feel without a nomination.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the downside, the unfortunate side is we need to talk in open session about it.
Right.
So we have to have that. And so what Lynn and I talked about was the fact that we each probably will have our favorites, although this is a very, very strong pool of candidates. Just instead of making a nomination,
Seems too abrupt.
it just seems just kind of a little abrupt at this point, just to basically have that discussion now about who do we like and why, or who would we like to see and why, based on what they've said in questions that have been asked. For example, I like the criteria of all four of the candidates that they bring forward. Each one brings something forward that's a little bit different and a little different strength. Kathy has that communication, that ability to work with people. So she's got a real people skill there that I see. Bonnie has clearly communication is great because she does the newsletters, but she also has experience with the fiscal side, with managing huge budgets, and with policy development, policy and procedures, and has nonprofit experience, which is really powerful to me. Diane brings that fiscal side forward and has that passion that she brings forward, and she also is a stickler for detail. So she would have that, and then Heidi has the technical side. So they all have those strengths, and Heidi has managed, and Heidi has project management. Heidi, you didn't talk about your project management, but I remember from your interview from before, you have a background in project management, so she would be an assist in providing some oversight for the project piece. So they all have such nice strengths to bring forward. I personally am looking at 2 of the 4 candidates as being a real asset here right now to what we are all about. In particular, I'm leaning toward Bonnie because she's got the fiscal, she's got nonprofit experience, she's got board experience, and really strong communication skills. And I'm also leaning toward Kathy because I like the idea of new input and the communication skills that she would bring forward. But I'm hesitant to say that that's who I want, because I also like what Diane brings forward, and I really like what Heidi's bringing forward.
Are they off?
No, they're on. We have to have an open session.
We have to have the
So,
conversation.
so the discussion has to be open.
So this is that time before we make a nomination where we can kind of talk about
Right.
who do we like or who do we not like.
I like Kathy's analysis. I like the fact that Heidi brings technical expertise and experience and the coordination that none of the other 3 do. And I like the fact that Kathy Wallace has board experience, and I think that's valuable. I think all 4 candidates have skills and capabilities and personalities that work with the board. I think any of them would be fine, although I have prejudice one way or the other.
You have a favorite, yeah. I don't know. I
Okay,
think so.
Dan,
Yeah.
As long as there's no employee.
I like Heidi's, having worked in a water plant I like Heidi's analysis and their technical skills and stuff like that, some background with water quality and everything else. I like Diane's, I'm gonna call it tenacity and willing to dig into things and to bring up the hard subjects, if you will. Sometimes I like that. I like the fact that Bonnie has community experience as far as working on boards and all the stuff that goes with that. She's done this before. And so I have my favorites as well, but I don't want to, be overly pushy I think any one of them would be a great asset to the board. I think each one of them has a passion for the community, and that's really important. So.
sure. So I agree. I don't think there's a bad choice among them. I think they all bring very good strengths to the board and then make us more well-rounded. So every single one of them has a contribution. I do appreciate Diane's analytical mind. I'm a little bit analytical, and I can appreciate when I see her talk and how she goes about thinking things. I'm very in admiration of her ability to analyze things and receive things. I also, the first thing that pops into my mind when I think of Diane is tenacity. I think she's proven that. And I see that in her work. And also, she said she was passionate, and I also see that in her interactions with the board. So I appreciate that. Let me see. Who was number 2? Was it Kathy Wallace? Was it the second one? Yeah. Kathy, for one thing, she and I have something in common, and we both work in healthcare. So I have a grand appreciation for nurses. There are, I think in most cases, nurses know more than the doctors, and that's been my experience. And I think that people, Kathy comes across to me as such a nurse that could probably push some doctors around. That's just what I get from her. I appreciate, there's also, with being a nurse, there's a lot of empathy. I think that came across in her explanation of what she deals with at her work, communicating difficult messages for family, being empathetic, and yet at the same time talking about just life. Yeah, and I think I would also appreciate some a new insight into the community and a new perspective. I think she would bring that to the board as well. Bonnie, for all the same reasons, I've been working with her for a while with different things, and very analytical, I think, too, very compassionate. And talking to her, I've seen that empathy in her too, as well as passion for her community that's there too. For Heidi, no doubt, her technical ability. I also did appreciate her first time that she came to the board, how she approached. She was very passionate about her concerns. At the same time, she expressed a lot of gratitude for the efforts of the board. So I felt that she understood that, you know, in some cases we're between a rock and a hard place trying to make the right decisions. And I appreciated her empathy to the board, and yet her ability to demand from the board what the community demands. So I appreciate that. And no doubt, again, her technical, it's almost too obvious to say. Again, so all of them are great candidates. I appreciate all of them. I think that when it comes to the board and kind of how I became involved with the board and how what I think is important to the board to show me or that sees me is one thing at the last meeting, Greg Bala was a candidate, and the simple reason why I nominated him was simply because he had been coming to the boards and had been a member of the community and been involved with the community for a long time. And I think that's the kind of the distinction amongst these people that I'm kind of for which I'm gonna cast my vote. And so I think that, having said that, I think Bonnie would be my choice simply because she's been a member and committed to the board for a long, long time. I appreciated that because when she became a member of the community, she sought to be involved, and she was involved for a long time.
I like hearing that, and I'm the newbie, so I don't know anything other than what got presented now and at the other meeting. But I also believe that Bonnie brings a fiscal oversight. Yep. And managing large sums of money, nonprofit experience, board experience, and just kind of in general, those things. So yeah, I agree with what you said.
And a calm demeanor as well.
And she writes well.
Yeah. Okay. So
somebody.
We need a nomination.
We need a nomination from somebody.
I nominate Heidi.
Okay.
I'd like to nominate Bonnie.
Okay, well, first we need to.
Oh,
is there,
we have to wait for a second.
Yeah, is there a second for Heidi?
Okay.
Is that a second?
No, he's not.
Okay.
He's wanting to make a nomination.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't sound like there's a second for Heidi. Okay. So Dan, do you have a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Bonnie.
I'd like to second that nomination.
Okay. So we have a first and a second for Bonnie. So we vote. So this is a roll call vote.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. So let's go ahead and vote. Don, you want to call them?
So Kathy?
Aye.
Lynn?
No.
Mhm. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that's takes care of the first action item. So congratulations, Bonnie.
Thank you.
And again, thanks for all who participated. I hope that you continue to be a part of the community and continue to come to the meetings and provide your input as you have done, because we certainly do appreciate it.
And I'd like to say that I'll look to the other candidates to help me as I kind of get up a little bit more up to speed with what's going on. Thank you.
And this is Kathy Wallace, I just want to say congratulations. I think you guys made an excellent choice.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Kathy, I would like to ask you to serve on a committee, please, because now that Bonnie is a board member, I'm looking for community members to volunteer in her spot.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Actually, I've been setting up a Firewise community, so the fire safety may be a perfect one for me.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
That's great.
Did Kathy, did you come to a board meeting once with the fire safety group? Were you there?
No, I was not at a board meeting, but I've been doing a number of things with the Firewise.
I just thought, because there was a group of people that came from that committee. I was just curious if you were one of them. Okay. Okay, so next item on the actions. Don, you have this information, right? You want to present it?
Yeah, this is for the annual audit, annual fiscal audit of my books. It's with Robert W. Johnson Accounting Corporation. They've been auditing our books for probably decades. And the amount is for $6,150 for the annual audit. And one thing I did notice was that it was on the agenda for Meta Vista, a contract like this, but theirs costs more. Anyway.
Are they the auditors for Meta Vista?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
They audit several small districts, small
Gotcha.
water districts.
Okay. So this is basically a routine
That's right.
task that we deal with every year, and Don basically presents a quote from them. Does anybody have any questions from the board, or actually from the community? Raise your hand or unmute.
I'm sorry, are you just clarifying that you're moving to a different accounting firm?
No, we actually are. Don is basically asking for approval for the quote of the customary accounting. Yeah, the normal auditor has been doing our audit. He mentioned that he does Meta Vistas as well and charges significantly more. Is just a bit of a tidbit information he got.
Oh, okay, because it was, I couldn't hear Don very well. Thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
I yield.
I just have a quick question. Do we have a deadline for which we have to approve an auditor and submit to the county showing that we have an auditor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Every year, right, Don?
Well, I know it's annually, but the deadline for different organizations is different, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's in line at this meeting. So
Okay,
that-
this is what we usually do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then we can get the audit fairly close to the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
And then we have,
And have we ever considered a multi-year agreement to get the price lowered? Or gone out to see what other firms have bid?
no, we have never done that.
I would like to make a recommendation that, not this time because it's too late, but I would like to make that recommendation in the future that we connect with a couple of other firms and get, see what they offer, and then also ask them to provide a multi-year to see if they will reduce the price.
Okay, so I think we're kind of setting this for RFP. We're going to ask that we want a multi-year contractual commitment from any organization that does this, and then we'll review that RFP for next year's audit.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, not for this one.
Okay, I think that's a sensible idea. Although historically, I think we've gone with this, and I think one other time we bounced it against someone else too, didn't we? And we decided to go with them.
Yeah, and it's quite possible that the
Yeah.
same thing will happen. I just sometimes it shakes them up a little.
Right. And I don't think we've ever considered the multi-year, at least in the time that I've been here. We have talked about getting quotes.
Well, actually, next year is going to be one of the most important audits because when a district borrows in excess of $1 million, it opens the door to a special kind of audit.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's what.
Okay.
That's what's that.
Thank you.
Okay. So do we need a motion to approve it? Or?
Mhm.
Okay.
B, right?
Yes, we're on B. We're looking for a motion to approve the quote. Okay,
So
so,
I make a motion that we approve the contract.
Okay.
It's the same people we've had for years.
I second it.
is it a roll call? Okay, all in favor?
I-
Aye. Any opposed? Good. Motion carries. Bang the hammer. Okay,
I need to get you the.
Does
Yeah.
Bonnie get to vote? Yeah. Or,
no, she has to be sworn in,
You
yeah.
gotta be sworn in first.
Yeah. So the next item is just basically a housekeeping item. What we want to do is give Don the authority to enter into contract with all the vendors that have been called out in our project. To give them the authority to enter into contract as long as all the contracts are within the scope as well as the budgeted amount. So if there's any change in scope or any change in budget, I think we'd like, to the board. So any questions from anybody on that?
Yeah, why are we doing that?
Just so that it doesn't hold up the process and he doesn't have to come to the board to enter into an agreement with all the vendors that we are already set to go into agreement with.
If it delays the project work, we could be hit with a fine.
Yeah.
Under project work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is you're giving the authority to the general manager to spend your money.
Just,
In order to maybe save a day or two, when all it takes is a phone call to one or two of the board members to get approval.
Well, that was part of Jerry's idea, was to have an ad hoc committee.
Yeah.
Of a couple of board members that I could rely on and lean on and then be able to execute that.
that's the
That
next
was-
item down.
Yeah.
So that it'll actually be two things that happen.
Yeah.
This is not an unusual thing that takes place. I think that the way it's written here, the vendor agreements have to already be in the scope of the project and have to fall within the bid amount, so that it's nothing that we wouldn't be agreeing, and they will still have to come back to the board for the final approval, but it can get things started. And if we take D, the ad hoc board project committee, in tandem with that or immediately after, then the delegation to the general manager would also need to run in tandem with the ad hoc project committee. So it just makes the process more formal.
Yeah, I understand that, but you're still giving the general manager the authority to enter, if you will, spend board money, enter an agreement, even though it's a limited agreement, because we're talking about tank projects.
Just the tank project, yeah.
You're
just
still
tank.
giving them authority to enter an agreement without board approval. Bottom line, any kind of agreement.
Well, I wouldn't say any kind of agreement. I would say it's limited to the constraints of the project, both within scope of the project and within the budget amount. So it can't
For that
be,
project. Yeah.
right, I wouldn't agree that is any agreement.
Along with consulting with
Right.
board members.
Yeah, and I trust Don because he does it all the time, is when he comes across an issue where he's not comfortable, he is more on the conservative side and brings, at least in my dealings with him over the last 3 years as president, he over communicates about things that he's encountered. So I don't feel that there's a risk of any sort. Where I do see that there's a benefit because we get the ball going. We go there, he's got to report out on this stuff at the month, and if he exceeds budget or out of scope, he's gonna have to answer to that.
I do understand what Lynn is saying, though. There is that level of concern about what if he enters into an agreement that maybe the board would have suggested that he get other input or not look at that amount. And so the delegation of the board authority to the general manager could be approved pending the approval of consultation with an ad hoc board project committee.
What, the way it's written now, once John makes an agreement, there's no backing out
Well, unless we change,
unless we change.
unless we
Yeah.
change it, which you can do.
Yeah.
So you could say that we, because the part D is the development of the ad hoc committee. So C would be that he has the authority to enter into vendor agreements with his project only pending the collaboration with the ad hoc committee if it's approved.
Or it could kind of flip it the other direction where Jerry would come to me, or, you know, with these different agreements, and I would go to a board member for a signature, you know, that, go to two board members and then one of them would sign off on it. You know, that's another way of doing it.
Well, I feel a whole lot more comfortable taking some of that responsibility off of Don's shoulders. Because if a mistake is made, then he's the one that eats it. And this water district is not governed by the general manager, but by the 5 board members. And the 5 board members should make financial decisions, period. Okay, and I hate to put Don in a position where something comes up short-term, short fuse, whatever you want to call it, and then we expect him to use his best judgment to make a decision, honest as it can be. But if it's the wrong decision, there's no backing out. There's no backing up. We're stuck. Where 1 or 2 phone calls, maybe a 24-hour delay to coordinate with a couple of board members, and then it takes the heat off of him, and it makes the decision ours, and it is ours to make.
Can C then be the delegation of board authority to the general manager to enter into vendor agreements pending approval of the ad hoc project committee?
But that may only be 1 board member.
No, this committee, it says,
Was that too?
is 2. This committee will be 2. So he'll have to,
The whole point was to not have to do 3, then you'd have to have a special meeting
not to have a special.
or wait till the next month. That was the only thing. That was the only thing.
So
having the approval of 2.
of the identified ad hoc committee, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 2 would be
2.
2 would be more comfortable for me, probably better for you,
Yeah.
because then some of the heat's off your back. And the thing is, let's say they get a hold of me and Dan, and I agree with Don. Dan says, well, what about this, or what about that, and we thought about this, then we can expand it to the other 2 board members before we get our neck in the noose.
Absolutely. So.
It doesn't mean that I have to make the decision, because there might very well be a decision that needs to say, well, that's another board meeting,
Yeah,
you know.
do we want to?
Yeah, I think that someone's requesting or wanting to comment. Diane, go ahead.
In any case, somebody needs to be a contract reviewer. So whatever the agreement is, what the language is very important. And whether or not Don, it's depending on how many come at him, it's about correct contract review so that you don't get tripped up in some of the language. And that's where, again, that's where my strong suit is, contracts. So I'm just saying you might even take an outside analysis, or use somebody like Heidi if it's in that arena, so on and so forth, depending on the vendor, and use one of the community's strong points to be another set of eyes on the contract for the language. Just my input. I yield.
Good.
Okay. Anyone else?
Rolando, it's Bonnie. I put something on chat. What about approval for contracts and change orders with a not to exceed amount? Oftentimes at the city for projects, we had a number of different people, our principal engineer on the project and other staff members, and they needed, to approve things and not go back and forth to council. So it seemed to work well, giving authority to whomever with that not to exceed amount.
Well, the only thing is that I think that would probably be something that we should have in general, right? But I think in this case, we're talking about a specific set of contracts for the project, and the amounts vary. There's some that are they're high dollar amounts and some that are smaller dollar amounts. So I don't know that would necessarily apply. But just so that maybe we can it sounds like both of the actions that we have, C and D, probably there's no support for them from the board. And there's a support for an alternative motion. So I don't know, is anybody interested in articulating that?
Well, I'm going to suggest that C be modified to say pending agreement or approval from the ad hoc board project committee. And I like Bonnie's suggestion of not to exceed, but the amount should be written in since it's only this project. And then we can approve C, and then we approve the 2 members of the board that will serve on the ad hoc board project committee.
Yeah.
And if you use the term ad hoc committee, that's a way broad statement that could be taken a lot of different ways.
Well,
Can you explain that for me? The ad hoc.
Ad hoc committee is a special committee that is set up for a specific purpose and that purpose alone, and has the ability to make decisions, and it is made up of just board members, and they are accountable to the board.
So if something comes up and they go to Jerry or to Dawn, and then Dawn goes to the ad hoc committee and says, like, we have this and this and this to consider, the ad hoc committee says, I think that's good, or I think that's bad. And then they make a decision. The decision is made outside the board of directors, and I don't think that's right, period.
Well, can it not be where the decision is given to the ad hoc committee, and the ad hoc committee directs me to execute the decision?
Or not.
Or not?
Yeah. I think
So
what you're
then it is on the board member,
Yeah.
the 2 board members.
Yeah, yeah, we're kind of confusing things all the way, but I think basically you're saying it's all right if I don't make the decision. That's fine by that. I said, but you do appreciate the need to make a decision faster, and I think that's what Jerry was bringing to the table. He wasn't so much concerned about the contracts or contract amounts, but there's going to be other decisions that are going to have to be made on the fly sort of thing. And so he wanted a group, an ad hoc committee with 2 board members that would be able to make those decisions. And those 2 board members would be entrusted to not make the decision if it was something they felt that needed to go to the rest of the board.
So to fix that, all you have to say is they go to the ad hoc committee and be specific. In this particular instance, that committee will consist of 2 board members.
Yeah, that's what D is.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's what D is. And what the top part does is it gives Don the ability to sign the contracts pending the approval of it.
Yeah.
So it's just a signature that he's getting.
Because if it came to Dawn and I was on the committee and there was a decision to be made, the first person I go to is back to Jerry to get educated. I want to know, answer my questions. Why are we doing this? What's happening? And I hope the other board member would do the same thing. And once we get solidified that we're in the right direction, then we go back to Dawn and say, good, sign the contract.
You can sign it, yeah.
Yeah.
And-
Or,
and-
things like change orders and all that kind of stuff are gonna come up all the time with various things, so. We're gonna
Otherwise,
need to have somebody that can move fairly quickly on that.
Yeah, and if there's a question, it needs to come back to the board.
otherwise it gets kind of sticky to try to get 3 members.
So basically, I don't think that action C is in play at all, because we're basically saying anything that has to be done, Don has to run it by the ad hoc committee.
But the delegation of the board authority is a signatory piece. So entering into a contract means signing. So we're giving him permission to sign pending approval.
Yes, okay, understood.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think?
So the motion is going to be I move to delegate the board authority to the general manager to enter into vendor agreements pending the approval of the ad hoc committee for this project alone.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that.
So does someone want to second it? Okay, I'll second it.
Like I guess it is.
And it might not,
One, two.
it might not hurt to be a little bit more specific on what this project entails.
The water tank project alone.
Yeah. That we might put that in there.
Okay,
Okay.
so add that to it.
That way there's no doubt in anybody's mind.
Aren't you recording this?
Yeah, he's got it in a couple different ways. Yep. Okay,
Okay,
so
this
we,
needs to be roll call.
Okay. Rolando,
aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay,
and then who's on the ad hoc committee?
well, yeah, so the second request was more something that Jerry had brought up, and basically he says, this is gonna move really quickly, we need to make decisions, so he wants the group. So yeah, so we want an ad hoc committee to guide Don into the contract negotiations, as well as to deal with any issues that Jerry comes across, and same as we just explained, if the two board member committee identifies any concerns that need to be brought up, and if we need to call a special meeting, they would call a special meeting. They would definitely report out on any activity that they had, no matter how insignificant, at every meeting, and it'd probably be a standing agenda item to make sure that there was nothing that they came up. So I think we're all in favor of forming the committee. Who would like to be in the committee? Lynn?
But it doesn't have, it should be expanded as a committee beyond the two board members. Expandable.
You mean if
Help me
one's not
understand.
available to
Pardon?
have two board members, and if
And an
one's not
alternative.
available, they go to a third?
Well,
Is that what you mean?
If you're gonna have an ad hoc committee, and you have two board members on that committee, it would be wise to bring on board that committee expertise as necessary to help make a good decision.
Yeah, I think that's a known
In other
thing.
words, don't limit it by saying the committee's gonna be just two board members.
Well, I also don't want to make it so that we have to have the whole community vote on it either.
Right.
So I trust that the two board members would use practical sense, and whenever they need, and they know they have the resources in the community who are willing and able to help, we should reach out to them. I would trust that would happen.
Right.
So I don't know that we need to be that specific about more than two board members, and I think they would be Don would be a default member of that committee too, so.
I would like to recommend that Lynn and Dan be on that committee.
Okay. And,
So you're recommending that Lynn and Dan be on the committee?
They can say yes with
Yeah.
it right now.
Okay. So your motion is to,
Well, my motion is to develop an ad hoc tank project committee comprised of Lynn and Dan, and at the time of meeting, anybody who they desire to bring in.
okay. So I guess I'll second the motion. And then we need another roll call vote. So Don,
Are you guys okay with that?
I'm okay with it. My only concern with it is, sometimes I get, at my work, I get a lot of phone calls, so I will call back as soon as I'm able to get off the phone.
Mhm.
So.
and that in the event that someone else is not, let's say Dan's not available for whatever reason, I think Lynn would use practical sense and say, I'm going to talk to Kathy or Rolando or Bonnie or something as well. I trust that would happen, but you're the primary people that would be reporting out every month is how I would envision.
And I would like to see Lynn as the lead.
Okay.
So if something comes up with a short fuse, and you talk to Jerry and you pass that information to me, then being on the committee and I can't get a hold of Dan, I'm gonna call you.
Okay. Or you can
Or
call
you.
Yeah.
And you're at work, so you
Yeah,
can probably first.
I'm home.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
Bonnie is too.
But the point being, just because by designation, one of you two's not on that committee, you can still have input to the.
Absolutely. that'd
Yeah.
be
Yeah,
great.
definitely. No,
It's a
that-
two- it's
that's
a
the way it
two-person
should be.
committee with two primaries plus alternates.
Especially if it's a time sensitive.
Right.
Situation.
Okay.
We just need to be careful not to violate the Brown Act.
Right.
In doing everybody.
Right. Okay, so I think we need a roll call vote.
Mhm.
You want me to call them?
Okay. Let's go in another order. Dan? Roll call vote to have you and Lynn on the ad hoc committee?
Aye.
Aye. Lynn?
Aye.
Rolando?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, well, we got through the most productive part of the agenda. So moving on to the next section, this is items for discussion. We have a couple of different things that we wanted to bring up. The first of which, we're not taking any real action on these, we just want to discuss them. The first is something I wanted to discuss regarding CIP, and what I mean by CIP is our capital improvement plan in this case. So basically, I think this is going to be kind of the first opportunity after the rate study to have the group go back and talk about the projects that are pending in our future. So there is a list of projects that Jerry has prioritized in his CIP plan, which is what we use to complete the rate study and to determine how, what needs to be done into the future. So right now is the right time to get involved with this effort and to impact the direction that it's going to go to and the steps that are going to be taken to identify what those CIP projects are. If we don't agree with Jerry's recommendations or we want to change what his priorities are, this is the time to do that. It's also the opportunity to formulate a timeline so that we have something to work with, as well as to consider the funding of these projects, how and when we would fund them, and that sort of thing. So I think that considering all the interest from the community regarding the rate study that was done, I think this is a perfect opportunity for everybody that has input that can help drive the direction of this project from the very beginning, so that, whatever time period, and I would think that we're looking at 5 to 6 years before any of this effort really takes a foot holding. This is the opportunity. So I want to request that, or I want to talk about forming a committee that's going to evaluate the CIP and start coming up with a recommendation on how we are going to execute on some of those capital investments and capital improvement projects. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on how we should go about that, but definitely I think that this is the time to start talking about it.
I think maybe we gotta hold off 3 or 4 months until we get our feet on stable ground with the tank situation. Maybe in October, in October, hopefully now we know pretty well how the tank project's going and when it's gonna end in a year from October, hopefully. And then we need to start getting involved. For one thing, Jerry's gonna be up to here until the contractors really get going on it and to help with the study or whatever, you're gonna maybe tax him, and maybe a 3 or 5 month delay would not be a bad thing.
Nope, and I think that you're absolutely right. Jerry's going to be key to the initiating of this effort, so he can lay out what the needs are, and we can't take him away from the project right now. But definitely, I like the timeline. I think October is a good time, but I wanted to put that out there. I think by October, we might be done with a couple of the other committees as well, and we can kick this this kind of effort off and get it going again.
I just don't want to lose anybody.
Any other, well, I'm watching them right here.
Okay.
So.
I kind of agree with what Lynn just said. I think our priority and our focus needs to stay on with the tank project, and as things loosen up a little bit, I think then we can look at the CIP a little closer. So.
Okay.
it's definitely something that we can't push to the back burner. I mean, it's, you know, in 3 or 5 months, I think we need to start looking at where we're headed in the next 3 to 5 years.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna open it up for comments. Diane, I see your hand is raised, but I don't know if we lowered it from your last comment.
No, I just raised it.
Go
I
ahead.
was just going to agree with Lynn, but I was actually going to say after the November election, because technically there's 4 of you that are up for grabs. So that may change the dynamic quite a lot.
I think that that's true, that we may have different board members, but I think it will be the responsibility of the board to assemble a group to review this matter regardless.
Yes, I'm just saying in terms of decisions and stuff, I believe that there's so much that's coming down the pike at this point in terms of the chaos that we're in at the moment, and between the tank project and what everybody is personally in their personal trials and tribulations.
Right.
Thank you. I yield.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, I don't see anybody else.
So let's just keep that on the agenda through the summer.
Right. Well, I think we added to the list of committees, right? And we're going to see where we're at with the other efforts that we got going on and shoot for a October, November, or, you know, end of the
We'll
year.
just add that and
kickoff.
see if we can get some input coming in and then move on.
Okay. Okay, the next item for discussion is board review of the bylaws.
So Lynn and I are going to speak to this one. We met last week to review what I'm calling the working copy of the bylaws.
5185.
And this first draft is on the website, so anybody can take a look at it, and I'm going to suggest that you do. There are 3 or 4 sections that the board really needs to take a look at. These look very different than our other bylaws because we used a template for community service districts and nonprofits to put these together. And this hasn't gone before legal counsel yet, so it still needs to go before legal counsel. But what we did was we took our current bylaws and we took our ordinances, because we have an adopted set of ordinances as well. And there was not a match with all of our old bylaws and our ordinances. So we used the ordinances because those kind of trump the bylaws to make sure that everything that's in this current bylaw, this current draft, reflects either our practices, what we're doing now, or what our ordinances say we're supposed to be doing, or what law tells us we're supposed to be doing. And if you scroll down, and so the committee is going to be working with this too to review, but the first thing is there is a list, conflict of interest, and it refers to a policy number. And although we have conflict of interest practices, we don't have a policy. And community service districts are supposed to have a conflict of interest policy. So that'll be one of the first policies that we do, and that way we can get this policy number. And then we went further here when it was the designated directors and terms, and it's highlighted in yellow so that anybody who's taking a look at it can see that it's.
Let's go back up to that first yellow, Dawn. Go back up again. The idea was that Kathy and I were going to run this by the board, make sure we're kind of in agreement, and fill in a couple of questionable areas that we wanted the board to have input on, and then run this by the attorney before we bring it back to implement it. So there's a couple of things that we need to change, and that's one of them.
Oh, I didn't even see that one. Did I miss it?
Can you read it?
Yeah, I thought it's not high. Oh, you're further than I am. What? That's section 8. Oh, you're go way up. You're way past me.
Can you guys do a share screen?
We are doing it.
No.
Oh, we're not?
That's
Oh.
what we were trying to do, is do the shared screen.
Oh. Are
Did
you,
you want to just go to christianvalley.org?
Yeah, we're gonna do the shared screen so we can all take a look at it.
okay.
But there are areas.
I got it really late before the meeting, so I didn't get a chance to really read it.
There are areas that the board needs to have input or discuss. And there are areas that are gonna need some community input too. So that's why this is called the first read.
Where do I find it?
Under board docs. Yeah. And that one.
This list on the screen is the one you sent to me, right?
Right, he's just way,
Yeah.
he's a lot further down
Yeah.
than I am.
After we talk.
Yeah, I was going a lot slower. But yes. So my next highlighted area is in section 3, the designated directors and terms, which is where Placer County comes in a little bit later.
Section 3 is the mission statement.
I'm in Article 6.
Okay.
Article 6, Section 3, designated directors and terms. Let me go back up. Keep going.
Rolando, could you zoom in just a little bit, please?
I can try.
Yeah, and the reason why we added from what was on the other one, current residents. And my wife brought this up, and I think it's a valid point. If you find somebody that's qualified, interested in all these other things, and be a board member, and we bring them on the board and they're a renter, in 3 months or whatever, they could be gone. Or if they're a renter, their real interest isn't vested in the district, it's gonna be where they are a year from now.
But that's exactly the thing that Placer County Elections said. That makes it so you do the elections itself.
But we have the authorization to do it any way we want.
True.
And remember
But
this,
then
Don,
you're asking me
When-
to
when
run
you-
the elections,
when you go to Placer County and talk to somebody in the elections department,
which I have.
you might talk to a new hire clerk behind the counter, or you might talk to the guy ahead of it. The fact is, a renter in this district should not be a board member because their vested interest is not in what's happening in Christian Valley. They're looking at what's gonna happen 6 months or a year from now.
Well, and remember, we want legal counsel to take a look at this too. So we put the current residents in, and then I highlighted it so that it's in there.
This is what it said in the old bylaws.
It's, yeah, that was, the old bylaws said that.
That was why we wanted to discuss it.
And actually, the ordinance says that too.
Yeah, well, and I think the point that Don is, or what I understand is that that's the simplest scenario, right? Because if we choose to make it to only property owners, then we're having to run our own elections to support the board, the membership of the board.
Yes.
Yes, because
Okay.
at that point, they're saying you have to exclude people from who, you have to exclude people from the election, and they're not gonna do that. So it becomes on us to exclude those. So we would have to,
Let me check
And
on,
it'd
let
be
me,
just good to have legal.
we'll
Right.
have legal look at it, but let me check on that because, for example, when you have a school district election, only people that reside within that school district can vote.
Yeah.
So you're still excluding people.
no, it's only the people that reside within the district. That's the same as us. You're not excluding anybody. You're excluding people whose business it doesn't belong to.
Yeah,
That's true.
what,
But that's just, you're gonna look into it. That's the concern.
Yeah,
And
We'll look into it.
yeah, and we just gotta decide.
and that's why it's highlighted.
Yeah.
That's why that's there.
And so what we did was we highlighted sections that we needed input on. So the next piece is the vacancies filled by the board. And there's some Placer County election language that needs to be inserted here. And I didn't have it, and I didn't know who did have it. So
So we'll plug that in.
we have to put it in there. And that's why that's there.
Yeah.
It's a placeholder.
Okay.
If you'll scroll down again, and again, this is organized differently than our current bylaws. It's much more succinct, I think, in some respects.
It's more inclusive.
It's more, yeah, it's more inclusive. Section 17 is an area of concern, and that was the compensation and reimbursement. And we are going to do a study. I have pulled up, Lynn pulled up a document that talked about the compensation and the rates. And I've pulled up 3 other sample small districts like ours versus the larger districts that get more money. But I also pulled up the community service district law, and it has some specific language. So I would like our legal to look at it, and then I would like to look at the comparison study and have that committee look it at before we come back with a recommendation. One of the things that was very, very interesting, I found by looking at other districts, is that this district does compensation based on the idea of X number of dollars per month, regardless of how many meetings you have. And or per meeting, I'm not sure because I'm still too new, but other districts do a flat fee for one meeting, and then every other thing that you do, you get compensated for. So if you represent anybody, or you go on a study, or you do any work like Lynn and I are doing, you get compensated for. And they set a max of $600 a month, which is in the community service district law. So there are certain ways to look at it that we need to be mindful about, and I think this is where the study is going to come in.
Kathy, there's,
the next,
so I forwarded to Dawn that it's under water codes, and that was one of my topics for the agenda, was actually giving you the specific laws, and that anything above $100 needs to go to the voters to be voted upon. And once that amount is reached, you can only go 5% a year. That's been forwarded to the board in my language and for the last 2 months.
Right.
So hopefully you'll look at that.
We're going to be pulling all that together and then having legal take a look at it as well before we put anything in the bylaws regarding that.
Correct. All right, I yield.
And I think I received a copy of that, so thank you. The next component has to do with, I'm scrolling pretty fast because, again, this is the first working copy, and I want to give people a chance to look at it and digest it and then start asking questions. Where are you?
I'm on section 19.
That's the 15-minute.
Oh, okay. So part of what we are looking at, one of the procedural pieces is how meetings are run and how meetings are organized following Brown Act. And there hasn't necessarily been anything in place. And so I took a look at what common practice is and also what's in the government code here. And again, what's in the special district law, and government code really dictates this part as well as Brown Act. So the board of directors shall set aside up to 15 minutes on each agenda item for public comment. That seems like that's a lot of time if you look at all of the items that we had here. But what it does is it allows the president to determine how much we have on the agenda and how many speakers there are to say, you know, we're not going to have 15 minutes on each item, we'll take comments, but also to limit the comments so that the meetings can end, or they don't have to, or we don't have to go another day to finish the meetings. 15 minutes is the norm, but it's a discussion item that the board needs to have on, is this something you want, or, and this is for each item that's on the agenda, not for the items that are not on the agenda. And then the next piece is the board chair, or the president in this case, can expand or limit the 15-minute allocation for public comment based on the number of people that are there to speak and the number of topics that are on the agenda to make sure that they get covered. And there are ways around that too.
And maybe we should say not only can he expand it, he can contract it.
That's what I say, expand
Yeah,
and decrease.
that's what you were saying.
Yeah, that you can go either way. Yeah.
Can't help.
I mean, if there's not a lot on the agenda and it's super important that everybody have their say, But this is the portion that allows the determination for everybody gets 3 minutes to talk, or everybody gets 2 minutes, or everybody gets 1 minute to talk. And then B is also highlighted, and this language needs to be aligned with how we do stuff. And right now we're sitting in a room and people are raising their hand on a laptop. But I know that Don was looking into possibly using PCWA offices, so there might be a podium, but this language needs to be realigned, and that's what that comment is. But it gives the procedures so that we're following procedures at all times to keep the meeting organized. Then continuing to scroll down on right above Article 13. This has to do with recorded meetings. And right now we're recording all of these meetings. The law, the requirement of the law is you have to keep any recorded meeting for 30 days. But your bylaws dictate how long we keep those recordings and make them accessible for public document requests. Lynn wanted to have at least a minimum of a year that we keep them, understanding that, and this is a discussion item again, the board needs to decide, understanding that we can say we're going to keep them for a year, but there are times when stuff happens to the recordings and we don't have them. So that needs to be that discussion item. The board needs to say, are we going to try to keep them for a year? Are we going to try to keep them for longer than that? Because typically anything that gets recorded gets translated into minutes anyway.
Yeah, 30 days doesn't seem, that's hardly enough time to go to the next meeting and get feedback or whatever. This didn't seem right.
Yeah. So the board will need to think about that and give input on that. And hopefully the committee will give some input on that too as we think about it. And then the destruction of records, this is from government code. The tape recordings may be destroyed at the end of 5 years. Now, I don't know how many people use tape recordings anymore. There's the digital recordings, but again, there are certain things that get recorded that you must keep. The only thing that you have to do is whatever we said in the article above, we need to make it align with this one down here. So those have to align, and that'll be that discussion item. Again, the board needs to decide, and we'll get input from legal counsel on what their recommendations are. Most of the ones that I saw from the samples had it at a year. The last piece has to do with the fiscal year, and I had this wrong initially. I thought we went from our fiscal year was January to December, so I changed it, so now it's July 1st to June 30. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I didn't realize that it followed I should have realized, because it follows district fiscal year and state fiscal year, but I kind of like January. And then this last part is the board bylaw review policy. This part, it really is an important piece because the board should be reviewing their bylaws annually. So this sets up when are we going to do this in January, and then reapprove or make modifications in February. And then the draft, this also says, here's how they get changed, so that it identifies a process for changing bylaws should they need to be changed, and makes it more formal. And that's it.
One more thing. I don't think you marked it up there, but it's recommended that we have a place where the records are stored.
Records retention, I have that, but not in here.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so we talked about that, and maybe we need to get some sort of a, when the tanks are in and the pump house is done and all of that, maybe we need to find a place where we can add on to one of the pump house buildings up here or whatever, and get some weathered in and have some file cabinets there where it's
Did I
accessible
send
and
that to you?
not in Don's basement or in his
Did
office
it-
or whatever.
Does the building have a sprinkler system?
Pardon?
Does the building, the plant have a sprinkler system
We
for
have
fire?
some, but it's,
I don't think so.
I put together a list, and I apologize. I put it together. I thought I sent it to be sent out, but and I'm not finding it here. Usually I keep everything on Google Drive. So I can just
our,
send it.
Don, aren't we keeping records at the water treatment plant?
I put together a
There's not
list
even room up
of
there, is
policies
there?
that this board needs. And one of the policies that we need that's required by law is a records retention policy. So I didn't put them in any specific order, but hence my desire to have a committee work on that. Is like go through and get all of the policies we need. And one of them is the records retention, and then dealing with public record requests, and a few of those others that are identified in the law around in community service districts, but also I have sample copies of things and what they should look like and what they can look like. And it's up to us as long as we're following the law with records, but also identifying a location and what records retention looks like, and how we're going to preserve and keep everything so that whoever is in a position, whether it's Don or somebody else, and whoever the board member is, we have our backups.
It's organized.
Yeah, I put that list together. I will send it back out to you because it's probably on my desktop someplace. But and it has a list of all the policies we need to do that will tie into our ordinances, because it's in our ordinances that we say we're going to do that. And again, there is now an explicit match between our current ordinance and these bylaws and new law.
Because our current bylaws are gonna go away.
Yeah.
When we get this completed.
So this is this is the first working copy, and I'd like to send it to legal, have them review it, and then get the committee started so that we can do the things that the committee is gonna do, and then they will come back to Lynn and myself, and Lynn and I will be on that committee, plus the community members, and then work from there. But we'll come back with our recommendations to the board, if that's okay.
Yep. Let me just go back to the meeting, make sure I don't have any.
You put a lot of work in that day.
Yeah.
My back is certainly, I know.
Thank you guys for doing that.
That chair is not super comfy. Unlike this one.
Don?
Okay, Diane, do you have a question or a comment?
Actually, at the very beginning, the first one that was highlighted, and it says property owner and resident. I think it's just basically a comma removal, because it seems to me when I looked up that particular law for elections, it actually did not have the comma. So it was saying property owner and resident. In other words, you couldn't be a property owner that was absent owner, that you were actually a resident as well as property owner.
Gotcha. Well, Diane, I have you as listed as being on that committee, so when that comes time, we can.
Yeah, there's quite a few of those laws that I can definitely have input for, because I already have them printed out. Yeah, there's quite a few things that you mentioned that I already actually have either previewed or printed out.
Yep.
All right, I yield.
Before we lose points on, we need to make sure she knows where and when the budget meeting's gonna be. And
Yeah, we got a whole another agenda still going, don't we? Okay.
All right.
Okay. So the next on here is actually roadwork survey for the summer. Lynn, you're supposed to present on
yeah,
talk
Don,
about.
can you have it preliminary typed up and ready to look at next week?
Yeah.
And then we can hand it to the board real briefly and
During the
say,
budget?
this is what we want to do and mail it out.
Okay.
So we can open it in the June meeting.
Okay.
That's good, because I think things are gonna get rolling here pretty fast, so we have to get the football.
Okay. So the roadworks survey is going to be presented at the budget meeting or at the June meeting?
Well, we want to send it out before the June meeting. We want to review it.
Oh, okay.
At the budget meeting briefly.
Right.
And mail it.
Okay, so we need to be prepared to talk about it at the budget meeting. Yep.
Don and I'll work on that.
Gotcha. Okay. Any questions on the roadwork survey? And then Seaberg, I think was commented, you will look for the opportunity to finish that Westridge Ave in that. Okay, date for the budget meeting, we have scheduled May 19th at 7 PM. Do we have a location yet? Okay,
Do you have a projector, though?
I
You
don't
have a
know.
projector?
I do.
You have a projector?
I have a projector.
How about a screen?
That I don't know.
Or can we put it on this TV screen?
yeah, you can present it on the screen.
Put it up here,
Mhm.
so we should be good.
Okay.
Okay. So we're
At Lynn's
at Lynn's house, okay? So is that clear to the community? The budget meeting is on May 19th. Okay, I don't see any questions, chats, okay. Next item on the agenda is the June agenda items. I think we need to have an action item.
At
Oh.
the budget meeting, there's gonna be an agenda item for the board to consider to refinance the Gale Luke loan. And there's an opportunity right now to decrease it from 4.25 to 2.66. And it's an overall savings of over $300,000
Yeah.
in interest. And so
Yeah.
anyway, bond counsel I'm having them work up a pro forma on that. And they're already knee deep in the interim financing, but this is another one that just needs to get going before the term expires for the loan.
Yeah, I think this was a huge win, so thank you very much,
Yeah.
Don, and also Tiffany, because I know Tiffany helped and was a part of that, so appreciate her contributions
Absolutely.
to that effort, and I think that
And
community is gonna be happy.
Greenhouser
And that'll be
And
on
there's
the,
a couple other residents out.
Yeah.
that'll be on the June meeting? Or the,
It'll be
At the budget.
meeting.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the one, we need an action item to approve the quote that Jerry brought for the fire hydrant reflectors. So if we could put that on the agenda as an action item,
Fire hydrant reflectors.
Oh, at the June meeting.
as an action item, yeah.
We'll keep the committee reports on there, and so as committees meet, they can start reporting out.
Now, you're gonna have Bonnie sworn in right away, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll be in contact with her.
okay.
But before we leave the budget meeting, which is next week here, but before we leave here tonight, we need to at least initiate some movement towards where we're gonna meet in the future, starting in the June meeting.
Well,
Any ideas?
well, the partial answer is that PCWA gave a thumbs up, but then right now they're a thumbs down because they're completely closed to the public. And so as soon as the COVID thing is like resolved to PCWA's satisfaction, then we can start meeting.
Okay, so we may or may not get in June, but probably by July. It
Yeah.
might be resolved.
One potential though, if we want to make the investment, is we can hire out the Meta Vista Community
That's right.
Center for the next meeting in June if we wanted to. How much did you say it costs?
I don't recall.
Okay, but it would be a little bit of an investment to get that room. So if we may want to consider that if we don't hear from PCWA.
Well, and the governor today just put Placer County on the next phase.
Yeah.
So
It might open up.
it
For
might open
phase
up
two?
sooner, where, yeah,
No, if that's the case, is the nature center available still? I don't know if that's what we want to do, but
they keep me awake every morning.
That's kind of play it by ear.
Yeah.
Do we, yeah, okay. I was just thinking out loud, does the nature center even have Wi-Fi capabilities?
oh yeah. Well, I have a call.
Oh, that's.
I have the MiFi if we need to use it. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know there are some dead spots. And
My house is in Oakland, I know.
Okay. So I think that's it for the June agenda. Okay. So now we have the consent items. So that includes the expenses and the minutes from.
You still on next month's agenda?
No, I haven't moved on. But do you have something for next month?
Well, open the road contracts and award the bid.
Okay, well, yeah, and we'll have that from the,
Assuming we get there.
yeah.
You know.
Get that done?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so next is approval consent items. It includes the expenses and the minutes from the April 21st and April 14th meetings, as well as the monthly expenditures. Does anybody have any questions on those? Can we get a motion?
So much.
Okay, a second?
What was it again?
This is a motion to approve the consent items.
Oh, second.
Okay,
First, second.
and that's just, everybody in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda, comments from the audience on items not on the agenda. Anybody in the community want to share anything?
I would really quickly.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, I wasn't at the
Okay.
raise hand. So at
No
the
problem.
April 21st meeting, at the end of the meeting, all 10 participants in that meeting were hung up on. And I myself took that very personally. And I've worked with the board for a very long time with the Gale Loop. And obviously we didn't do any of the Zoom stuff. But yeah, I was offended. I feel the board owes all 10 participants that were in that last Zoom meeting an apology.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you, Tiffany. If there's no other items on the agenda, we can adjourn, or, yep.
And just as a comment, I know that the meeting ended abruptly. And I think we will be more mindful to make sure that everybody is clear that the meeting is over before we shut it down.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Kathy.
Okay.
I only have one other comment, and that would be I have gone to great lengths to give you a very itemized agenda list, and to cursorily go over it as just a communication letter is downplaying it. And when I looked at what was available just today to download, that was not included, and each time I've made it as a public record. So each one of those topics needs to be addressed. And at one point, is the board actually going to take action on those to address those points?
Well, I think that we have taken action on a number of them. And as I mentioned earlier on, we're still working through a couple of them. A couple of them we're looking for legal guidance. A couple of them are going to be dealt with in the committees that we're talking about. And some of them I think we dealt with.
Well, we will post the letter on the agenda
Right.
so that people can see it.
But the letter's included in the agenda packet, yep.
And if it's not there, it will be.
It wasn't when because I printed everything that was there, it was not there. So just saying.
Our oversight, and we will be uploading it so that people can see it.
Okay. Also, I'm because an election's coming up and people need to go to the county to basically throw their hat in the ring. At some point, is the board going to also make that very clear on the homepage and or in other communications? Also, letting it really be known with proper notice for the meetings and any other actions that the community should be aware of, that it should be posted in at least 3 locations. I'm not quite sure how you're going to service that because obviously the only one that's being done right now is via email. And then the other one was, as I'd mentioned this to Don, is that he has a fairly comprehensive email list that each time there is a board meeting within, or not just the day before, but at least the 72 hours before, that then email notice goes out of a board meeting for more participation with the Zoom information in it. I make that recommendation to go forward. I yield.
Okay. Yep, so that's going to be incorporated into the communications committee. So we have a regular process for that communication.
Rolando, this is Bonnie. May I comment?
Sure.
I just wanted to respond to Diane and say that in the newsletter that went out with the water bills, I think we received them a week or 10 days ago. I did include an article that talked about the open seats in November. I didn't go into detail about the process because I think people should take the initiative to contact the county themselves and make sure that they hear it from county staff. But I did give them a time frame for applying in general. And if we have another newsletter before the deadline for applications, we certainly will include that in the newsletter again.
I believe Don could probably also forward that in his email list.
Right. So secretarial communication would be an email to the email distribution list. Okay. Any other comments on items not on the agenda? Okay, then I think we're going to adjourn the meeting. Thanks again, everybody, for participating. I appreciate everybody's input. And we'll, our next meeting is on next week, May 19th, in the same, that channel, I guess.
And the board's here.
Yep, and of course, here we'll be here at Lynn's house again.
Do they want to start a half hour earlier than we have, than this meeting?
Well,
In the past, we usually have, does that work for anybody? Not
Some
work?
of my people look at
I think
That
our,
works for you probably.
no, I'm here now, so I'm not traveling. I could do it earlier. However, we already communicated 7 p.m. So I'd rather we stick to that. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Yeah,
Thank you, Rolando. Good night.
good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, you guys.